Previously on Battle Chasers, the mercenary rogue, Red Monica, broke into the Ultramax prison skyhold in order to free prisoner Rayon del Soya. She managed to succeed in her task, but in doing so, she also accidentally freed a handful of dangerous individuals. Those escapees only want one thing: the head of the man who imprisoned them all, Garrison. Meanwhile, Garrison's investigation of Aramis's house led him to Gully, Knolan, and Calibretto. After a brief encounter, an emotionally distraught Gully told Garrison to leave her alone, and so they parted ways. Maestro of the Martial Paladins, Garrison's old master, has convinced him to take up his sword in defense of Capital City. We join that battle in Comic Book Breakdown episode 11.4. New challengers appear.
In the capital lands, fate has brought together 5 unlikely allies. From Vandalheim to Capital City, from the Cyrene Valley to the Crescent Isle, they will become known as the Battle Chasers. Dun 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 dun. Battle Chasers. Dun 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 dun. They stand against evil with all of their might. Wherever they go, well, you know there's a fight. They're gonna win the battle by the end of the night. So who the hell are they? You wanna know, right? Well, they're the Battle Chasers. Dun 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 dun. There is Garrison. I don't want to use this sword, but I will if you force me. And we've got Calibretto.
I was made for war, but I will fight for peace.
And there's Gully. I'm gonna find my father, and I'll slug anyone who tries to stop me. And Knolan. It takes years to master magic, and I've spent them, you punk. And we've got Red Monica. Don't worry, boys. I'm here to save you. They stand against evil with all of their might. Wherever they go, well, you know there's a fight. They're gonna win the battle by the end of the night. So who the hell are they? You wanna know, right? They're the Battle Chasers. Dun 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 dun. Battle Chasers. Dun 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 dun. They're the Battle Chasers. Hello everyone. You have been waiting a week for this new episode. Normally for a new comic book, you would have to wait a month for a new issue, so a week isn't that bad in comparison. But Battle Chasers issue 5 came out in May of 1999. Issue 4 came out in October of 1998. 7 months of waiting to see our heroes save Capital City. When we last saw Knolan, his heart had been stopped by an enemy mage. Gully and Calibretto were staring down the djinn creature Bulgrim, and Garrison broke his vow to never use a sword again in order to help protect and defend Capital City. That's exciting stuff. Issue 4 literally ended on a cliffhanger. And to have to wait 7 months to find out what happened is just mind-bogglingly frustrating. Again, thankfully for us, this comic has long since ended, but that is still an impressive delay. Issue 4 opened with Bulgrim's vessel, a young woman, approaching Outpost Zeta, basically what she was doing in the present. Issue 5 opens in her past. She doesn't remember her name. She doesn't remember much of her life before the bracelet. She had been a rogue, a tomb raider, a common thief looking for treasure and loot. It was on one such run that she first encountered the bracelet. It seemed to call to her in whispers. Power. It said, "Free me, and the power shall be yours." She put on the golden bracelet, clasping it around her left arm, and became trapped. Sure, she gained access to Bulgrim's power, but that power was still Bulgrim's, and the unfair deal only cost her her soul. She has not been the same since. Cut to the here and now, where the vessel sits nearby, blank-faced and staring as Calibretto's metal frame slams into Bulgram's. The giant djinn rants during the fight, of course, and reveals that Bulgram needs a pure soul to exchange for his freedom. Bulgram pushes Calibretto back, and Gully begins to fear for her friend. We don't end up getting a lot of information about the Skyhold escapees before this issue, or the end of it, but Sharif and Mad try to work in what they can. I like this background for the vessel. What fan of RPGs hasn't looted a treasure hoard? But adding in a cursed bracelet is a nice twist, although it immediately makes me not sympathize with the vessel. Like, sure, it was total accident that she got a cursed bracelet, but before I felt for her because she was a prisoner of Bulgram's power. But now, instead, it feels more like comeuppance, that, enslaved to her greed and avarice, she has now ended up enslaved to Bulgram's powers and desire. That's dramatic irony, folks, and I dig it. This is a quick scene otherwise, but I have to point out some small errors. When the vessel puts on the bracelet, it's on her left hand and it is golden, but it is only ever shown on her right wrist, and it is frequently a dull black color, although the jewel in the center remains red. In fact, even immediately after the page covering her origin happens, in a double-page spread featuring Calibretto and Bulgram and the vessel, it's on the wrong hand! WTF, Joe Mad? WTF. Also, there are some miscolors on Bulgram as well. He has two metal bands that encircle his biceps, which are colored golden, and that's fine. But he also has shackles around his wrists, and they switch between an iron gray and a shiny gold in the comic. Both of these details, the bracelet swap and the color mistake, are relatively easy to miss as they're happening right in the middle of exciting action scenes, but I'm sitting here studying these books with a freaking magnifying glass, so they become readily apparent. Oh, and I just turned the page, and King Veneer's ruby crown is now an emerald crown, so we aren't even done with the coloring errors. Nice. So why are we talking about King Veneer? Well, last issue, the king ordered Captain Clavius to have his men aid capital city's wounded inhabitants. Treat them, but stay out of the fight. But I guess that's no longer important, as Clavius' troops have finished setting up some kind of mana cannon machine gun thing, and they are aiming it at Calibretto. Clavius reports the presence of an illegal war golem in the fight, and King Veneer orders its destruction. Thinking that the soldiers might be able to help her friend, Gully runs to them, and one of them scoops her up and pulls her out of the line of fire. And then they begin to shoot. Dozens of bullets pepper Calibretto, shattering its left hand entirely. Bulgram laughs at this assault, claiming that no weapon made by man can harm him, which explains, actually, why he went unharmed during the attack on Outpost Zeta. Upset at seeing her friend hurt, Gully breaks free of the soldier and runs to Calibretto. The golem tries to get her to leave to get to safety instead, but Gully won't abandon it. She overhears Clavius prepare another round, ordering some men to get the girl out of the danger zone. But she puts on Aramis's gauntlets before they can reach her. They hurt her friend. Now, she is going to hurt them. She slams a fist into the ground and the soldiers go flying as stone and debris fly into the air. Doing so catches Bulgram's attention. He approaches Gully, and before she can punch him, he smacks her instead. She goes flying away and Bulgram laughs at her. But he stops laughing when she stands back up. I am hopefully not going to go into a lot of detail on each of these fights, as honestly I just don't think that there's a lot of depth to them. However, I am going to comment on the soldiers attacking Calibretto and Bulgram, because I don't like it. Last issue, King Veneer instructed Captain Clavius to not fight the escapees. I thought that this was a shrewd move. Veneer knew that only exceptionally skilled warriors, like Garrison, would even stand a chance against these kinds of enemies. Better to keep his men alive and focus on helping the wounded. But here, Clavius and his men have a large cannon that they would have had to set up in order to even start fighting, which they were directly told not to do. And when Clavius calls the king, Vanir doesn't demand to know why they're fighting against his wishes. This scene directly contradicts Vanir's orders from last issue, and that's the kind of sloppy writing that I was afraid that we would get here in Battle Chasers. A few blocks away, the floating form of Cranius hangs above Knolan's still body. Cranius laments how easily Knolan, the wizard extraordinaire, died. But oh well. Better for Cranius to steal the mage's magical knowledge. He leans forward with a glowing hand and grabs Knolan's face, expecting to, I don't know, pull the knowledge out of his head, I guess? Instead, Knolan's flesh pulls away, and then his body detonates. That's right, y'all. We've got some bamfin' magic. Cranius is shaken by the explosion, sure, but he's not dead. He saw Knolan die. He knows that he did. But Knolan's form stretches out of a nearby wall, and then he casts a spell. A circle of golden glyphs surround Cranius. When he moves to fire at Knolan again, the spell activates, and the ground splits open. A writhing mass of blue energy tentacles shoot out of the ground and engulf Cranius. He damns Knolan to hell as he's pulled into the pit, promising to see Knolan there. The old man falls to his knees out of shame or exhaustion, I don't know. Yeah, kid, he replies. Maybe you will. The fighting having taken most of the day, it is night when Garrison arrives in Capital City. Brass Demur waits for him patiently in the uppermost level of a clock tower, the place where Garrison last stopped him. The place where Brass will redeem himself. He narrates the scene, claiming to have weakened his enemy. I believe that he's referring to forcing Garrison to wield the sword again, an act that Brass thinks will ruin his peaceful life, and thus make Garrison angry and rash. I'm not sure when Brass was captured, but I could argue that Garrison was far from happy when all this crap attacked. I'm not sure how well that plan's going to work, Brass. Brass also states that the golden glyphs on his body are defensive, some form of protection. I'm not sure how, so I'll just guess good old bamfin' magic. Garrison reaches Brass easily, using his sword to fend off a trap, but when he reaches Brass, he sheathes his sword. And now Brass is the one off balance. What chance could Garrison stand without the blade? Garrison launches into a series of fast and intense strikes that would probably down another man. But not Brass. Having allowed his enemy to see his weakness, Brass catches a punch, and then twists and dislocates Garrison's arm. Garrison grunts in pain, sweep kicks Brass, and then backs up. Brass compliments him on the counterattack, but tells his opponent that if he surrenders now, then Brass will make his death painless. Instead, Garrison shoves his arm back into place. Holy damn. This shocks Brass, who was expecting the pain to break Garrison's focus. Instead, he seems more focused than ever. Angry, Brass charges in, his fists a blur. But Garrison can still read them. He pulls a chain out of one of his pouches, and then he wraps it around one of Brass's wrists. This allows him to control that arm, and he spins, landing an elbow blow in Brass's throat. Narrationally, Brass compliments Garrison on discovering the holes in his armor. Physically, Brass then punches the wall, bringing down a ton of solid rock debris upon him. Garrison draws the sword in a flash and slashes the stones. He goes untouched by any of them, and Brass smiles. Finally, the sword. He rushes at Garrison again. After blocking several of the punches with his blade, Garrison takes a big ol' swing, and Brass catches the blade in his palms. Pathetic. But then, the sword moves. The circle in the middle of the guard rotates, and the wings unlock. Once they snap into place, the blade glows blue, and it draws some sort of blue energy out of Brass. The monk screams and falls to his knees, wanting to know what Garrison just did to him. Garrison doesn't answer. Shadows hide his expression, save for a golden glow coming from his eyes. We then circle back around to Gully versus Bulgrim. The giant monster stares at her as she readies to fight again. So pure, so beautiful. Her soul must be the one that can free him. He charges at her, but she manages to hold him back, swearing to get him back into that bracelet. That sticks out to Calibretto. The bracelet. The golem locks onto the piece of jewelry with its targeting apparatus, and then it fires one shot. It strikes true, shattering the golden trinket, and Bulgrim screams as he is sucked back into the red jewel. Gully is initially thrilled that they've won, but then she quickly realizes how badly hurt Calibretto is. The golem is just happy that she's safe. This is when Knolan and Garrison arrive, the swordsman carrying the unconscious body of Bulgrim's vessel. Gully hugs Knolan and Garrison smiles quietly. But the relief of the moment is cut short as clapping fills the air. King Veneer approaches, congratulating everyone for the good work done. What heroes! Why, one might even think that such a gathering was planned. Well, WT No swearing! Is that supposed to mean, Veneer? Are you implying that you're the one behind Monica's job and the subsequent release of these prisoners? I sure hope that you're not. Because you aren't, you're literally not. We'll meet the man behind Rayon del Soya's breakout next issue, but it definitely ain't King Veneer. However, we wouldn't have known that at the time of publication, so it is possible that Sharif and Mad were laying out some red herring for us. Mad draws Veneer super evilly in that last panel, so they're definitely trying to implicate something here. I'm just not sure of what. I like Gully and Calibretto's fight. I like the simple yet unexpected solution to it. I don't like Knolan's fight for two reasons. One, it's a bunch of nonsensical magic stuff. Cranius kills Knolan, but then Knolan is back alive. How? And he's in a brick wall? Then he's banishing Cranius? We're back to seemingly endless magical powers, and I hate that. Bamfin magic, man. Two, Knolan references having a book of tricks, and we saw that big book in issue 1, actually, but he never has that book afterwards. It hasn't appeared since. He doesn't use that book to fight, nor does it ever seem important that he actually has a book of spells, so him bragging about how big his book of spells is seems really stupid to me. In the Dragonlance novels, it was a part of the lore that wizards had to have spell books and reread them in order to keep the power of the spells alive in their minds. In Dungeons & Dragons, a wizard can transcribe spells to unlock their power and keep using it as the game goes on. These basic mechanics work, and they ground magic in a way that is usable and relatable and understanding to an audience. As of yet, Battle Chasers has no mechanic for either casting magic or for why you would have a magic tome. That makes Knolan seem unstoppable, as he has ready access to all of his spells, even without a book, and it renders any tension in the fight totally moot. I have similar problems with Garrison versus Brass. Sure, Brass tells us that his glyphs have defensive powers, and I'll buy that. But then why are there gaps in that armor? He knows about the gaps, and yet he's amazed that Garrison found them? He's the world's greatest swordsman, Brass. You better believe he'll find those gaps! You stupid, arrogant motherfucker. I also don't like some of the artwork here. When Brass was introduced, he was thin but muscular. He's a monk, that works. But during this fight, I swear to Stan Lee, he gets bigger. Every panel he gains like another 3 inches of muscle mass. Brass starts this fight looking like Spider-Man, and ends it looking like the blue and gold Hulk. Was that part of his magical, nonsensical defenses, or was it just Joe Mad's artistic flair? I don't know. Also, there are no backgrounds in this issue. Okay, I counted, there are actually 7 backgrounds in the whole comic out of 119 panels. This isn't something that normally bothers me, but it really bothers me here because I can't tell when or where anything is happening. It was dusk-ish when Gully crew arrived in Capital City, and they've been fighting for 30 to 45 minutes, and then it's night when Garrison fights, and then it's maybe mid-evening when Veneer comes to them at the end. It might even be dawn when Veneer comes to them at the end. I just can't tell. This means that there is no context for where any of these fights happen. Brass punching a wall comes out of nowhere when I haven't seen a wall for 2 pages. Liquid does do an admirable job filling these empty spaces in with very nice colors, but I wish that there had been a coloring progression that either matched the location of each fight or the time of day. When Garrison fights Brass, the background changes between reds and oranges, very bright, intense colors, despite the fact that they're fighting at night inside of a stone clock tower, so you'd think you would see a lot of darks and a lot of more natural tones like grays and browns. It took us 7 months of waiting to get this. I am unsatisfied. The creative team tried a few tricks to speed up the production of issues, though, which brings us to August. Oh, that might actually be funny. August of 1999, a scant 3 months after the publication of issue 5. That trick is a backup feature. The main narrative here in Battle Chasers issue 6 is only 12 pages long, while an 11-page backup story makes up the rest of the issue. This means that Joe Mad only had 12 pages to draw, so instead of taking half of a year, it only took a quarter of a year. Isn't that nice? Issue 6 opens in King Veneer's palace, where our heroes are recuperating from combat. We focus on Knolan, who is still having trouble sleeping. His dead allies, Duke Raimon, Tenaciacia, and Ramesith Ironhanded, have all been killed recently by the man that they imprisoned and buried. August. That's why I laughed earlier. We have this big reveal about our big bad who is named August in the month of August. That's kind of cute. Anyway, back to it. August, the greatest threat that they have ever known, is back, and with him returns the menace of the War Golem. The dead spirits of his friends clutch at Knolan, crying for him to join them, and he suddenly wakes up. Can his dream be true? Has August really returned? Determined to confirm this before he starts ranting about conspiracy theories that no one will probably believe him on, Knolan prepares to leave his allies. Elsewhere in the capital, we join Sebastius Nefar as he surveys the destruction wrought during the recent combat. Nefar is a youngish man, probably in his early to mid-20s, or he is a handsome late teenager. He is tall and thin, with long blonde hair that goes to the middle of his back. 2 long strands of hair frame his face and hang near his chest. He's dressed in blue armor and clothing, and he doesn't look like that bad of a guy. Unfortunately, he is named Sebastius Nefar, so he is definitely a bad guy. The innkeeper informs Nefar that his room is ready, while dropping some expositional information about Aramis's gauntlets, which Nefar finds interesting. Nefar and his 2 aides are left in their room, and the aides ask for permission to drop their disguises. He grants it, and they do, touching green gems on their chest to reveal that they are Lycelots. They then ask what their next role in the plan is, and Nefar tells them that they have no part. After the way that their kin botched the rest of this job, Nefar doesn't trust them. He's brought in outside help. Perfectly timed smoke billows through the bottom of the door, and Nefar smiles. Excellent. Their help is here. A short being, swaddled in brown robes, enters the room. We cannot see their hooded face, but a knobbly, crooked hand is wrapped around their staff. A lantern of blue light hangs from that staff. Nefar continues to grin. Did they bring it? The being opens the lantern, and blue light streaks around the room. Nefar shields his eyes with one hand and smiles. Breathtaking. If you, somehow, couldn't guess, Sebastius was the man behind the attack on Aramis's house and the subsequent attack on Knolan's house. Maybe Sebastius just has a grudge against houses. I doubt it, though, cause Nefar seems interested in Aramis's gauntlets, although we don't know why as of yet. I'm kind of amazed at how casually Sharif and Mad dropped this information. This is a big deal. Nefar has been plaguing our heroes for 3 issues, and he has been our most immediate threat. But they just have him show up. There's no dramatic reveal, no motivating factor yet, and honestly, it does make his appearance here fall a bit flat. I had totally forgotten Nefar's existence since my last read of Battle Chasers, and that is a bad sign for a villain, especially when he's one of 2 villains that you're really going to get out of these 9 issues. Thankfully, Nefar is going to remain our main villain for the rest of the series, so we're going to have lots of time to spend with him, learn that history and motivation that we're lacking, and hopefully have him make more of an impact on us as readers and as people, dang it. Before we move on, I have one really minor complaint about Nefar himself. When the Lysolot asked Nefar for reinforcements in issue 1, after Calibretto kicked their butts, Nefar's eyes were golden. And I don't mean that they were glowing gold like some characters do in this comic. No, the guy's irises were yellow golden like an owl. But here, Nefar's eyes are blue. Now, it could be that there's some magical bullshit reason why Nefar's eyes can change color, and you best believe that I'll be keeping my eye out for that over the next few issues. But I kind of think otherwise. I would almost bet that Joe Mad hadn't finished Nefar's character design by the time of publication of issue 1, so there was no color guide for Liquid to match. Hence the inconsistency. I am almost 100% sure that moving forward into the rest of these issues, Sebastius' eyes will be crystal clear blue, and I will let you know if it's otherwise. Somewhere else in the civil/unified/civilized territories, we find Rayon del Soya trying to escape from Red Monica. Bengus and Akiman corner him in the woods, allowing Monica to finally recapture him. He is then taken to the meeting place, where we find a man in armor. This figure is tall, is totally covered in layers of dark gray metal, which is, in turn, covered by a magenta cape. His golden glowing eyes watch the thieves as they arrive. He is pleased. Rayon del Soya is an essential part of his plans. That is fascinating and all, Monica replies, but she wants to know when she's getting paid. Y'all can get to know each other better on your own time. The armored man tells her that she will not be getting paid. And Monica draws on him in a flash. I'm sorry, try that again. The man explains that Monica's less than subtle work on the escape may have alerted others to his presence in these matters, which he does not need. As such, he cannot afford to leave her, or, correction, leave them, alive. Monica scoffs. Last she knew, it was a 3-on-1 fight, and she likes those odds. She orders Bengus and Akiman to attack. Before they can, though, 2 enormous war golems burst up from the ground next to the armored man. He grabs his cape in one hand, declaring that they shall be the first to witness his rebirth, to witness his power. The power of August. So let's recap. At some point in the recent past, Knolan and a group of allies sealed August inside of a suit of armor and then buried him alive. All that we know about August otherwise is that he controls war golems and appears to have skills both magical and mechanical, as demonstrated by the killer doll that he sent Duke Ryman. We also know that King Veneer declared war golems illegal and had them destroyed, save, at least, for Calibretto. I had thought that this was done for social reasons. After all, you wouldn't want something as physically powerful as Calibretto, I don't know, turning on you and demanding rights as a thinking sentient being. But if August can control the golems, were they destroyed as a precaution instead? to keep August from abusing their power? And if so, are these two war golems new? They certainly look newer and more complex than Calibretto. And what does this mean for our favorite war golem? Could August control it? Something to think about. Sending Knolan off on his own quest is important as we go into our next 2 issues as well. We're going to be facing a magical threat, one that Knolan may have been able to handle quite readily, but one that Garrison and Gully will not be ready for, which increases the tension of the next 2 issues. But we're not there yet. We still have a second story to look at. Written and drawn entirely by Adam Warren, the interlude, as the credits page refers to it, picks up after August's attack, I think. It opens with Red Monica pulling out a dagger from a sheath on her belt and swinging it, which is when we cut to 10 years ago. If the idea was to pick up on the end of the scene with August and transition into this flashback, I don't really like that. When we last saw Monica, she had her pistol drawn and she was ready for a fight, so immediately switching to a knife seems kind of stupid. To be fair, it is just a picture of Red Monica drawing the knife, spread out over 4 panels on a page with a blue background. There's no context, there's no other characters, there's nothing else going on to say that this scene has to pick up from when we saw Monica with August. It's just the only thing that I can think of as to why are we getting this story now, and I do like the idea of transitioning from that scene to this story. Anyways, 10 years ago, a much younger Red Monica infiltrated the Sadomasothesium torture cult. The head cultist passed her ensorcelled form their sacred blade, crusted in the blood of their prophet. The cultists have no lips, them having been cut away, and they are wrapped in leather. Candles burn in their sacred temple, while rune-carved pillars surround them. As Monica leans in to kiss the blade, as instructed, her spell wears off. In a poof of smoke, preteen Monica stands embarrassingly revealed. She could have sworn that spell was supposed to last for 20 minutes. We move outside the temple, taking in the calm night air. Or the formerly calm night air, as an explosion rocks the entrance to the temple. Monica leads the charge, the cultists screaming after her. They are armed to the teeth with bows, arrows, spears, swords, and maces, planning on some glorious murder. Monica, somehow, is not hit by a single weapon, though. She hops over a thin wire that was stretched between the 2 walls of the stone entrance to the compound, which the cultists hit instead. Another round of explosions topples the stones on either side, crushing some of them, but then trapping the rest of them inside that compound. Monica, against all odds, gets away clean and alive. She heads to her, pawn shop, I guess, where she tries to hawk the blade. The owner is some kind of monster in robes with 4 heads strung on a chain on its neck. The actual body cannot speak English, so one of the heads speaks for it, complimenting such a young mammal on such a tricky job. Unless she's starting to mature, it's hard to tell with a mammal's body. Monica certainly hopes not. Developing hips or whatever would only get in the way of her stealing things, and she is a thief, thank you very much. This is a pervy joke, and it is a dumb bit of irony, but no swearing! Me, I still chuckled at it. Anyways, Monica wants to know what the blade is worth. The owner explains that there really isn't a market for sadomasochism relics at this time, so it's not worth much. Monica argues that it is a holy relic, dude. It has to have magical powers or something that ups its value. The shopkeep explains that it is sacred because of the ceremonies that it is used in, not because of the powers that it has. It is sacred, not magical. But, you know what? It likes Monica, and so it'll give her a deal. It'll give her 20 crowns for the knife. But Monica turns the shopkeep down, admiring the dull, crusty blade. Nah, she'll keep it as a souvenir of her illustrious beginnings instead. Cut to a few years later, when an older and shapelier Monica returns this long-missing artifact back to the cult for a hefty price. 3 platinum bars, baby. The cultists don't recognize Monica thanks to her new assets, and they are joyful to have their holy knife returned. But as she walks away, Monica's getting nostalgic for that blade. She had cleaned it up nice, had a handle and guard put on, it had good balance, and it always was kind of lucky. You know, she was just an unskilled thief when she first stole it. She could totally just steal it back, and the cult would be none the wiser. And she does so, the story ending with her being chased by the cultists one more time, the blade safely in hand. This is a pretty cute, fun story. We see Monica's knife a few times throughout Battle Chasers, so learning that it has a backstory is cute. It goes to show you the power of a clever imagination, taking something as common as a knife and building a whole story out of it. It's also a way for Warren to tell a story and eat up some pages without needing to draw characters away from their place in the main Battle Chasers narrative. Adam Warren's artwork is often hit or miss with some people, but I generally like it. It is very anime-inspired with big eyes and thin noses, but he has a much thicker ink line that's more akin to American comics. It is very animated, and his storytelling tone generally leans more comedic than dramatic, as we saw here. He has a series of graphic novels called Empowered that are pretty great. I haven't read a lot of them, but I've enjoyed what ones that I have read. What I really appreciate here, though, are his scene transitions, as Warren uses close-up shots of the knife in the same pose to move us through the story. Director Edgar Wright does a similar technique in his movies, where we tend to focus on an object that moves between scenes, allowing us, as viewers, to change settings and times. And, that's issue 6. There are less overall problems than issue 5, but Sharif and Mad are basically setting things up for the next few issues here, like the appearances of Nefar and August. Next time, Garrison and Gully are the only heroes on hand to stand against Sebastius Nefar and his newest weapon, the Borrower. What does August have against Aramis? Or does he just covet the power of the gauntlets? Find out next week on Comic Book Breakdown episode 11.5, A Father's Legacy.
Everyone, there are a million podcasts vying for your time and attention, and I'd like to thank you for listening to mine. If you would like to get in touch with me, to share a concern, request a series, compliment me, berate me, whatever you like, send me an email at cbbreakdown@gmail.com. Otherwise, thanks for listening.